Hello and welcome to another edition. So the last list seemed to go down pretty well. I had some nice discussions off the back of it. So I've got my YouTuber's haircut and I'm back to do some more of it. Now this is in preparation for a couple of tournaments that I've got coming up at the end of the year, which I'm so excited about. So hopefully, if Nurgle will allow it, that utter rotter will be able to we the royal we, just me, will be able to hit up the London GT at the end of the year, and there's one the month before in September. Yes, that is the month before. Which will just be a sort of sampler, another GT just outside of Reading. I'll put the links in the doobly-doo if anyone's interested. So I'm building this in preparation for them because I don't want to get stomped. So I'm seeing what I can do with a list that's a little different from what I've seen in a lot of the competitive games that have been floating around the meta at the moment, the scene, as it were. And what I'm trying to do is a horrible combo of mortal wounds. This bad boy, if my maths are correct and on a good turn, can punt out about 20 to 30 mortal wounds. That's right, 20 to 30 mortal wounds in a turn, which is just disgusting, and fits the bill. And yeah, I really like the sound of it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So heading up this sticky spear is Mortarion himself. The man, the myth, the legend. He's in an inexorable play company. It's hard to say that word. Try it 3 times in a row. You'll struggle too. It means that I can stop or prevent charges. I can sort of take off 2 inches from anyone's charge if they're targeting Morty, which is a big deal. Now on top of that, he's got a few psychic powers in his pocket. Miasma of Pestilence is 9 times out of 10 he's going to be putting it on himself just to give him that extra bit of durability, just in case he needs it, which hopefully he won't. No, will be willing. He's also got Curse of the Leper. It's a real consistent mortal wound bomb. We combine that with contagions, and on toughness 3 models, you're looking at about 5 or 6 mortal wounds, which is pretty good. And also pretty good against Space Marines. Then we've got the Plague Wind, which is my hot take. It doesn't seem to be getting a lot of play, but I think actually, when you think about it, his biggest problem is getting tar pitted. That's the real trouble. Now, with Plague Wind, it can be a bit of a Hail Mary, but if you cast it on a 9 or more, it's getting mortal wounds on 5s and 6s. Now, if you're up against a large unit of Necron warriors, that's a huge boon. I mean, that's enough Necron warriors to put a big dent in it, and they can't come back from resurrection protocols. None of that nonsense. Also, things like termagants, it's going to free up enough that your scythe is then going to do the rest of the business for you. So I think it's a nice one to have in your back pocket. Most of the time you're going to be using Curse of the Leper, but when you need it, Plague Wind is nice to have around. And for his that Warlord trait that he can take, I would take the Ferric Blight most of the time, because -1 AP is universally fantastic. But when you're facing something like Drakari or Dark Angels, which are, in my opinion, kind of quite hard counters to what Death Guard can do at the moment, the droning is going to really limit the amount of movement that they can get, the amount of board control that they're able to apply. You're going to take away their biggest leverage, and that's a huge boon for you. So yeah, Morty's out there doing his thing. On the other side of it, we've got a battalion that's someone else's. I shouldn't steal those from those lovely boys. Now this is headed up a Mortarion's Anvil, so we can get those heroic interventions from any unit in that battalion, which is lovely and tasty. Headed up by 2 HQs, we've got a Malignant Plaguecaster just for that extra psychic support really. He's got Putrescent Vitality to either tip some Terminators over the edge into that toughness 6, which is always tasty, or 9 times out of 10 it's going on those Poxwalkers just to keep them alive. He's also got, I believe it's Gift of Plagues, which ups your contagion range. Yeah, good work on the naming conventions there. Couldn't have been Gift of Contagions that ups your contagion range. That would have been crazy. Which is, so anyways, that extra bubble is going to really help things like Morty get that Ferric Blight or the Draining out to a wider radius. It's good on this Lord of Contagion that we've got here, which we'll get to in a second, or even Death Shroud is going to really help them get those flamers in on some vulnerable targets. So yeah, he's just there for extra mortal wounds, a bit of psychic support. For his points cost, he's grand, he'll do. We've then got a suggestion from a Mr. Ben O'Connell, who I spoke to on the last video about what we could do with the Lord of Contagion. And he came up with, frankly, it's just unfair. The Geneva Convention is looking out for people like this. He's horrific. So he can do, with his Manreaper, he's putting out a decent amount of damage. He's deep striking into your enemy lines. When you also add in the fact that we've got Rotten Constitution on him for toughness 6 and ignoring 1 and 2 AP, it's really good. It means that if you're shooting at him, if you want to get something effective against him, you're having to use -3 AP, by which point you're wasting some of that AP because you've hit his invulnerable save. So there is no efficient way to shoot him. Great. Brilliant. We then add in pathogens to this Manreaper. We've given him Explosive Outburst, which gives him an automatic hit for every 6 roll to hit. Pretty good. We could take the mortal wounds when you roll a 6 to wounds. That is another nice option. But when you then combine it with the Warp Insect Hive, which we've also given him, where he's re-rolling those hits, I just think it's the more reliable option, because you can get your hits out, you can fish on that first fistful of dice and try and get those extra hits. If it's not 6, re-roll it and hope for the best. And I think you should see some good return on this fella. He's able to deep strike. Say you chuck him in deep strike, your opponent is going to then have to think about separating out their bubbles, because he will clear a screen pretty effectively. Like if he can get in that 9-inch charge after dropping in, he'll bring some real hurt down. So they're going to have to try and screen him out a little bit, at which point you've got a bunch of units nicely spaced out for Mortarion to slingshot around the board. So they're a nice 1-2 punch when combined together. Other characters we've got our Foul Blightspawn. He's a classic. You see, he's pretty much an auto take. I don't like the ideas of auto takes. I think in a game as lovely and varied as our sweet blessed 40k, they shouldn't be needed, but they are. So here he is. Now he's got Revolting Stench Vats, of course he does. I've also added the Gloaming Bloat to him, so no re-rolls of wounds or hits around him, which is tasty, and of course the Viscous Death Pathogen for +1 strength to his weapon and re-rolling those hits. What this adds up to is when he is in the mid-board, which is going to be probably either in front of a unit of Death Shroud, so that if you try and charge my Death Shroud or him, you're going to get overwatched by a horrible flamer that is going to reduce you to green goo, or chuck him in with the Terminators and he's going to make sure you're fighting last, or you're going to count as if you haven't charged, which is going to turn off a lot of abilities in 9th. A lot of them rely on their unit having charged. So yeah, he's just fantastic. He's so many eggs in one basket that someone's going to want to come from him. So that an opponent is going to make him a priority, and that makes them nice and predictable, which is always good. We've also got the Tallyman rocking around with the Toll Keeper, just to get some extra value out of all those bolter shots we've got floating around. He's another one that can do a real Hail Mary pass, who with one good turn, when you've got 5 turns of shooting in there, one of them's going to do it, where you really blow an opponent out of the water and do much more than expected. It's a nice spanner to throw in the works, and something that keeps your army nice and unpredictable. Now, coming to the elites, we mentioned them before, so we might as well jump straight into them. We've got some Terminators. We've got some Death Shroud, beautiful models, but they're just straight as they come out of the box. No chimes, I would have liked them, but didn't have the points. And only one Plague Spirit on the champion, but they're still real good. Next to Blight Spawn, next to Chaos Spawn, they're some of the best damage dealers we've got in the entire codex, and they're gorgeous. So that helps. So they're joining in. They're getting in on the action. We've also got some Blight Lord Terminators. They're classics. I've struggled to use them in the past, to be honest, because I quite like a bit of deep striking, but I can find it tough sometimes, especially on these new smaller boards. In the brief window we were allowed to play here in the UK, I did struggle a bit to use them. So I'm going to try and make them the focus of my tactical thought in the upcoming games. So what they've got, I should get to it. We've got a Flail, the good old Plague Flail, the Flail, coming out and doing its thing. It's a fantastic tool. Otherwise, bolts and axes. I think the axes are the way to go, apart from the champion, who has a Bile Sword, which has been replaced with the Plague Bringer, which is, you can wombo combo this to do some real stinking damage. So it ups the damage a little bit, ups the AP. It's a good leap from a Bile Sword. And the fact that every model destroyed by an attack by that sword counts as 2 is huge. When combined with the stratagem that Terminators can make a unit -4 morale. So, these guys kill, let's say, 2 or 3 models. That's 4 or 5 against morale. Then another 4 off. That unit's running. It's just going to happen. It's going to run. Unless they're rolling a 1 or spending CP on it. So for that 1 CP to give him the Plague Champion or Champion of Disease, do it. It's fantastic. It's great. And that's a nice way to get rid of some elite troops, which are going to be coming after your mid board and after your things like Terminators. It's real tasty. Now in troops, let's jump to troops. We've got a unit of 5 Plague Marines, again with a Flail. It's the best tool in our toolbox, I think. And on top of that, I've also given our Plague Champion, I've snuck in a Plague Skull of Glothila. Wait, that lass. We've got her head, we've filled it full of disease, and we've chucked it on that Plague Marine. Now, that's only going to punt out about 5 or 6 mortal wounds, only. But it's the real key is it's used in the movement phase. So you can clean out the last of a screen and free up Morty to really punt out something like Curse of the Leper or a Smite onto a juicier target. Also, if you're dealing with something like the Nightbringer or Gazskull, then you can chuck that out in the movement phase and get another one of those chunks of damage in a different phase. And wounds in the movement phase is a rare beast, so it's a nice touch again for 1 CP. I don't know why you wouldn't take it. Then we've got good old Poxwalkers. We've got a unit of 17 for points reasons. The only other reason is points. They're there just to basically take that strat to keep regenerating D6 Poxwalkers a turn, which is frankly kind of demoralising. Not that you want to do that to your opponents, but it can really change a game plan if you're trying to chew down a unit and it's constantly getting regenerated. See how you like it, Necrons. See how you like it. We've also then got 10 Poxwalkers in another unit just to hold some objectives. So that brings up our troops. Fast attack wise, I mentioned it before. We've got a Chaos Spawn, just one on his lonesomes. We've given him grandfatherly influence for that extra toughness and disgusting resilient. But for 23 points, you can chuck him near your backfield objectives, hide him behind a tank or something, or maybe even put him into reserves because you can still come in on that back line within 9 inches of something if something is brave enough to come into your deployment zone, he can do some real damage, and will tangle with a unit of 5, you know, scouts or primaris, no trouble. He'll do some real hurt. We've then got a blow drone to run interception for Mortarion. It's got a flesh mower. Do forgive me. I've only got the plague spitters painted. The flesh mower is on my table, I promise, and I'll get to it. But for now, just to show off something nice and colourful, we've got a blow drone. This is going to be following Morty behind any terrain near him, just ready to pop out with that 6-inch heroic interaction. Pop out and mangle up, turn some people into nice mincemeat, make beef burgers out of them. He's just there to free up Mortarion basically and give him another layer of defence. Heavy support wise, you know them, you love them. It's Plague Burst Crawlers. They've got the entropy cannons on them, just because they're a great option to sit on those backfield objectives and put the willies up your opponent. That's basically what they're there for, to dole out them willies. I'm not expecting them to nuke anything off the board in a single turn, but they'll certainly bracket something and make your opponent think about where they're putting their largest vehicles. And these mortars are pretty stonking, especially when you can spend that CP to give them 3 damage, and you can do it out of line of sight. They can be a real boon to your army, and for their points cost, they're just unreal. They're great. So that is pretty much it. We've got a couple of mortal wound bombs. We've got some psychers throwing out some mortal wounds. We've got things like the mutant strain on a large unit of Poxwalkers. That when it comes down to it, you're looking at about 20 to 30 mortal wounds in a single turn, which is you can just have some of that. Your stupid Dark Angels Terminators with your all your inhuman trans physiology, or whatever you want to call it. None of that nonsense, thank you very much. So that's the combo I'm going for this time. Let me know what you think. The only trouble I've got, real talk, ladies and gents, is Morty. I love him. He's a good boy. He's a beautiful model. He looks great on the table. He's great to play with. I think he's fun to play against. I think. But he's a lot of points, you know, and with Dark Lances floating around, with some of the new codexes I'm seeing coming out, that this power level is really being dialed up to 11. And by the time this tournament rolls around in September, I believe it is, the GT, the London GT, there's going to be a lot of codexes out, which I think are going to be able to blast Morty off the board fairly reliably, you know, without some unbelievable rolls. They're going to be able to do it. So I've got some replacements, some reinforcements just edging in. So what we could replace him with is a Terrax Assault Drill, a Bloat Drone with Plague Spitters. We can up that Chaos Spawn unit to a 3-man, getting more out for that CP for grandfatherly influence. Up them to a 20-man unit of Poxwalkers and 5 Plague Marines with a Flail. So for replacing Morty, it feels like quite a lot we could get utility-wise. The Terrax Assault Drill, I know you're saying, but Ollie, we spoke about deep striking. It's so much harder now. Yes, you are correct. You are right. Especially when it's got such a huge footprint as a drill. And you can't use Flash Outbreak. I was wrong in that first video, like an idiot. I was wrong. But you can fill it with Plague Marines. They can jump out and they can use the Flash Outbreak, so you get the same end result. With 5 melter shots and that frankly horrific drill on the front end of that bad boy, and T8 is pretty good for 180 points. I think it's fairly priced, and I think it's another tool in the toolbox to make your opponent think, and I'd be really worried about what's coming in turn 2 or 3. You know, so that's kind of the other options we've got. So let me know what you think. If you think I should take Morty and keep this beautiful boy doing what he loves best and turning people to sticky goo, or if I should chuck in these Terrax Assault Drills and a couple of Spawn and a nice extra Blight drone. I really appreciate the feedback I got in that last video. You know, Ben, that idea for the Lord of Contagion was fantastic, and I've been mulling it over for a little while. And this is this is the baby that we've created, buddy. And this is what I think is the sort of best end result of all of those little plans. And I think for his points, he just pips out Typhus in my mind. I do love Typhus. It's again a beautiful one. So please, you know, give me your feedback. Let me know what you think. Let me know any changes you would make. I've got a few other ideas for AdMech coming up when their codex gets released soon, and once we've got Cadron of Rust or whatever it's called, I'd like to have a look at Metallica and get stuck in on them and see what we can do. But otherwise, thank you for sticking around while I rambles at the end. I really appreciate it. Give me your thoughts and feedback, and good luck in all your endeavours. Bye bye.